Good evening, everyone. How's everybody doing this evening? Had a little bit of technical difficulty going on out there. Uh, let's see. How are we on YouTube? Can you see it? Everything working out there? There seems to be some screwy things going on. What's up the fuck today? Hero, that's YouTube and Twitch is good. All right. All right, awesome. All right, we're up and running. Well, this evening, we have Brady Davis with us from a wonderful, wonderful channel on YouTube called BRADYTOONS. Irish Connection actually reached out to me. He had discovered it, and I went and watched, and I was like, wow, this is great. So having said that, Brady, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you got where you're at.
Hi there. Yeah, so I'm Brady Davis. I'm a 2D animator based in Minnesota, and I have been doing retail for about 7 years now. I went to school for animation, and right before I went to school, I was looking for a job, as college kids do, and Home Depot was the only place that had a leave of absence. So it made it possible for me to work summers and Christmas break. So I figured, why not? Home Depot is a great company, and started working there, and or the Home Mart.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great company, but you'd come across all these customers, and it was funny. You see all these memes about all customer service stuff, and I'm experiencing it firsthand. I'm like, wow, this is all true, and I was going to, I was learning about animation. I was like, well, I have to make a series about this. There's no way, someone does this and doesn't tell their side of the story, I do skit animations on my YouTube channel and storytime animations. And I have a series called The Home Mart that was really part of another series, my storytime stuff, but a ton of people really loved it. So I got a lot more coming out, and I'm really excited about what's around the corner. So
Nice. So you made mention offline that it kind of made its way to corporate. Did you get any kind of pushback from corporate, or were they?
not at all.
See, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it's kind of a little long story short. My fiance, her friend, his dad used to actually be my district manager, and we went to a college graduation party, and he let me know. He's like, hey, I saw your home art animation. I'm like, no way. How'd you see it? And he's like, well, I was just in Atlanta, and corporate seen it, and they love it, and they want you to keep making more. So they really enjoyed it, and I thought I was going to get negative pushback, but looking back, it's kind of really the customers I've really told the story of, because there have just been so many stories, too many to tell. So that's what I'm aiming to do with the Home Art series.
Yeah, the calling Karen one was hilarious.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much.
Now I did enjoy the one you just did about the gas pumps.
Oh yes,
I found that pretty funny.
thank you.
that
Thank you.
great storytelling with just a gas pump right there. So I know you did animation, but obviously you do like these skits and stuff too. So I mean, do you have any aspirations, other than animation, than maybe like getting to acting or anything like that?
I've thought about it. Yeah, like I said, I really went to school for animation, but I had a lot of really good people working with me that did video production, and they kind of taught me, how to use a camera. And my dad's a photographer too, and he does great work. And I've always found that interesting. It's a whole different ball game, drawing 24 frames a second as opposed to like filming it and setting up sets. So I want to explore that definitely in the future. I was, intending to just do animation, but I've had a ton of fun doing the skits, and it seems a lot of people really enjoy them too. So I got a lot more coming.
So from start to finish, let's just say your first episode of Home Mart, like start to finish
Yes.
process, how long does that actually take?
Yeah. So that usually takes a little bit less than a month, because I do all the drawings myself. I do all the sound effects, the music. I'll kind of sample it from some other things, but if not, I'll compose that myself too. And it's really kind of just putting that all in the package. And yeah, a little bit shy of a month, but it's a great process, and it's sometimes pretty tedious, but the most rewarding thing is, finally rendering that video and seeing all the hard work you put in. You're like, wow, that's cool. Let's make another one.
So you mentioned compose music yourself. You a musician as well?
Oh, I wish. That's my brother. He does some great stuff. He's kind of giving me some pointers. He uses, I think, the program is called
Yes, I
Logic.
am familiar.
Um,
Very.
oh yeah, okay, yeah. I had no idea. I mean, it opening it up for the first time, it's so complex, but he is just a wizard with that. So he's definitely helped me with that. He's composed some tracks I put in my videos too as well. And yeah, he's given me some pointers there. It's very hard. Like I said, another ball game from animation and video and then music now. So, um, but yeah, I'll really kind of only do that as needed. Usually the home art stuff, I'll kind of sample it from other places, but my other animations, I'll fit something else in there. But yeah, music, it's definitely, it takes a while getting used to, but like I said, once you kind of see it at the very end, it's like, wow, I did that.
Yeah, but that's,
So
I mean, that's a month. That's a pretty long process. I mean, just for because how long are those typically?
usually I aim between the 6 and 8 minute
Yep.
mark. Part three was around 10 minutes, and there was a particular scene at the end I wanted to add, about how I met I actually met my fiance at Home Depot or Home Mart,
Home Mart.
and I wanted to definitely include that. But yeah, around the 6 to 8 minute mark.
Nice. Okay, so let's talk a little retail. So you worked at Home Mart. So
Yes.
what would you say is the worst thing? Is it customers, coworkers, corporate?
Ooh, I think the worst thing would be, yes, the customers, and they're not all bad. I know the Hallmark videos make it seem like they're all that way. They're really not, because I've had some amazing customers that are super close to me at the end. But I'll definitely say the customers make it very, very, very challenging. And it was weird the first time I experienced my bad customer, because I was like, well, this is a hardware store, like what are they going to do? But they find ways
Oh, yes.
to be pretty difficult.
Well, how was the customer base like during Christmas, when they're gearing up for like holiday lights and Christmas trees and all that other stuff? Was that pretty nightmarish?
Oh, it was definitely nightmarish. That was the inspiration, but I did a Black Friday home
Yep.
art animation, and that's exactly how it felt. I know it was super exaggerated, but we would have people camping out at outside of the store, because we open at 6 a.m. We have people camping out there at like 5 o'clock, 5:45, and all for poinsettias. And that's another thing. I was like, well, my first Black Friday, what are they gonna trying to get? Like, we don't sell flat screen TVs, we don't sell video games, but there's these poinsettias that they were crazy marked down, and they were sold out in like 20 minutes, and we had a ton of them too. But their last minute shopping deals would be our fault for some reason, to be like, well, I got 12 of these, and I'll bring my truck around, and then it's like a little sedan, like, that's not a truck.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you thought this through. It's not going to fit in there. So they're like, well, you got to make it fit, because I'm not coming back. It's like, All
Or when
right.
they buy that
Happy holidays.
yeah,
Thank you.
when they buy that Christmas tree that, the huge 12-foot Christmas tree, and they take you out to like a Kia.
Right.
It's like, oh,
Yeah. Right. Oh, totally.
asking you to tie it
And
on
then it's
top.
our fault. They're like, well, yeah, right. Yeah. It. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. It was all the customer's fault. Or it was all the retail associate's fault because the customer's always right. It's like,
Well, yeah.
well, there were some people.
Go ahead.
What's
No, go
up?
ahead.
Oh, there were some people who would be genuinely, they would want to help out and help load stuff up, but then there are other customers who, they'd buy, a tree or two and all these poinsettias, and they'd be like, yeah, I'll pull my car around, and just be this, able-bodied customer, and then they would just be standing there kind of like telling us what to do. It's like, well, aren't you going to help us?
Oh,
Yeah,
what's really bad is like when you and this isn't being sexist. Actually, if anything, it's being disrespectful. The amount of female associates that'll take stuff out to a car, and you got some big burly dude, just standing there watching them work, and don't want to help them at all.
totally. Oh yeah, completely. And you wonder, like, what is going through these customers' heads? Like, how could you be like that, especially during the holidays when everyone's supposed to be, happy and stuff. So it's just it's a joke. The coworkers, the people I worked with, were really the thing that made it very special. I mean, that that in itself, walking in and seeing on the schedule who you were working with, you're like, yes, let's tackle this together. And you kind of had something in common. You're kind of going through the same sort of hell together. And I think that was definitely the best part of retail.
I did find in your video when you were talking about the returns desk, God,
Oh
that
yeah.
is so rampant everywhere. And I mean,
Oh yeah.
so tell us a little bit about some of your horror stories at the return desk. This ought to be good.
Oh yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I'll say every customer experience in all my homework videos are all based on a true story. So they actually happened. Sometimes I exaggerate a little bit with the music and like the facial expressions, but they've all happened. People returning stuff from Lowe's or Joe's, and they're like, "Oh yeah, well I got it here." And then you look on the back, and there's literally like the Lowe's logo, and it's like, uh, "No, you didn't." And they're like, "Well, can I at least return it here and you give me money?" Like,
No,
no.
we can't.
But yeah, right. I think the one of the worst return things was this was my first month working returns desk, and I feel like that video I barely scratched the surface. So like I want to make more of them, but I was working with someone else who he was new to the returns desk as well, and we had this guy come in with, I kid you not, 12 cartfuls of just trash and just stuff that was super old, and I guess he was a contractor, and he's like, "All right, start scanning." I'm like, excuse me, what? We can't return this. And of course he gets the manager and you're like, yeah, well, we'll have to return this. So we start scanning, and lots of it doesn't even have barcodes on it, and a ton of them have dirt and spider webs on them, and you could tell the stuff's just old. And he's like, yeah, I just finished building a house, and I figured, well, I'll just return all the stuff at the very end. We're like, oh yeah, thanks for looking out for us.
That's a good
But
point, because I would have to think the contractors are probably like the Karens of Home Mart.
oh, there were a lot. Oh yeah, there were a lot. And I get, they have bosses too that are kind of giving them a hard time, and that translates to them giving us a hard time. But it's at the end of the day, if you are easy to deal with, if you're respectful and you want to, you know, if you're a good customer, then I'm nice back. Like the respect part goes both ways, and I just think so many people forget that. They're either in a rush or they're just mad in general, and they're like, I think I'm going to be a jerk today, and it's all going to be directed at the cashier who's still in high school. So it's just a mess.
So, what would be your worst customer experience?
Oh boy, the worst customer experience. One of them definitely would be I actually put them in the first home mart where I was at self checkout, and I was showing this guy, or this guy wanted to know the price of a doorknob, and I took him away from the self checkout, but I put a close sign on the self checkout, so that no one else would scan stuff, and I go show him the price, and we come back, and this other guy comes up to me, this other customer is like, well, I have this receipt, and I guess I paid for this, and I didn't want to, and I look at it, and it's the doorknob I scanned previously for the other customer, and I'm like, well, you did. And I had to put two and two together, because it's like, who just walks up to a self-checkout with something already scanned on it and then pay for that? So I told him he did pay for it, and that I'm going to have to walk him down to the returns desk so that we void it. And he freaked out. And I know I said a lot of the stuff in my videos can be exaggerated, but in that one in particular, he was screaming. He threw all the stuff on the ground, and he was just straight up not having a good time. And I'm like,
all because of his own fault.
It's one thing you put. Right. And I'm like, I'll help you. That's unfortunate. We can definitely return this, but I have no idea why he got so mad. And it was just in the blink of an eye. He just flipped a switch and just started screaming, and everyone was looking, and he was causing a scene, and I'm just there taking it. But I'd probably say that ranks right up there.
That's rough. That is all over a doorknob. I mean, something that you obviously could fix. You could refund it, no problem. But I guess, that's
right.
Crazy. I had Irish Connection had a question, said, are the managers at Home Mart spineless when it comes to dealing with Karens?
Ooh. I don't want to get in trouble, but there was one in particular who was spineless. The other ones will work out deals with them. They're not like, it's not like, you tell the Karen one thing and then you get the manager and they just completely, flip it around. They're like, oh, I don't know what our employee was thinking. Let me just take care of you. They'll try and work out deals. They'll try and calm them down. But there was one in particular who was, yes, spineless, that word. And when you saw them on the schedule, you're just like, oh man, I hope A, that a bad customer doesn't come in, and B, that it turns into, a fiasco. But there was one, who just really would not go by even the store's own rules, and it just was it's like, why do we even have those to begin with? But you just had to deal with it, I guess.
I would say that is one of the biggest arguments for a lot of us in retail is, why do we bother having return policies when the company doesn't even enforce them themselves? What's the grossest thing you ever saw returned?
Oh, grossest thing. A used toilet, and I'm not even joking. I was this close about putting in my returns video, but I'm like, well, we're going to kind of keep this PG. But someone brought a used toilet in with the water and all the stuff inside, and you could just smell it before it even came in the door.
Oh my God.
And even our manager was like, you know what? You don't even have to scan this. Just go outside, throw it away. Like, even if you just leave it out there, just get it out of the store. We don't need that in here with our customers. And I'm like,
whoa,
absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
That's disgusting, man. God. I mean, that's where you start asking for hazard pay at that point. Get you have to.
No, totally.
So are you still working at Home Mart?
I am not. No. It was basically a college job, and I feel bad even calling it that, because there was a lot more good than bad. But I left Home Mart the very end of 2019, and I got an animation job here in Minneapolis. I'm in Minnesota, and COVID happened, and I was furloughed. And usually, the art kids, or the design people are usually the first to be laid off or furloughed. And I was like, I understand, I know these are tough times. So I went back into retail as merchandising with Pepsi. So I kind of got to see the other side of the story, working overnights and stocking stuff. And still, was like, well, at least there's not going to be customers. There were
Yes.
customers, and there were
I
more
tell you
stories
what, though,
there. There's always
those
customers.
Pepsi guys put in some work. It ain't easy.
Yeah, I no, I was putting at least 90 hours a week at the very end because it was union, and I get start the job and you're kind of at the bottom of the union list. Like I totally understand that, but the 90 hours a week thing was just I didn't see my own family, didn't see any of my friends, and I was just like, yeah,
Wait,
it's
you were doing 90 hours a
we'll
week
stick this.
and it was unionized?
Yes, they were messed up because they would hire all these random people. I actually kind of based my hiring manager video off of that, where they would just hire Joe Schmo, and the Joe Schmo would quit that same week. I think just to show that they were, looking for employment or something like that. But it put the burden on us, the merchandisers, and we had to pick up, the slack. And towards the very end, I was like, well, yeah, I can't do this. Respect anyone that can. I can't believe, anyone can go through with this, but it's just
That's
not
insane.
for me.
So do you still stay in contact with anybody with
Yeah.
Home Depot?
I do. My most recent Home Art video or Home Depot, I had two of my coworker friends. I was like, hey, we've been through thick and thin together. Do you want to be in my animation? And they're like, yeah. So they did their own voices. They voiced themselves, and that was super fun. So yeah, I'll reach out to a couple of my old coworkers and share some memes on Messenger or see what they're up to. But yeah, like I said, that was definitely the best part. I met some amazing people, and it's so interesting to hear their stories behind it too. How they got into retail, and everyone's kind of going through their own thing. So yeah, there are some great people at Home Depot.
What kind of feedback did you get from friends and peers and whatnot that were still there when COVID hit? I mean, how bad was it for those guys?
It was horrible. Obviously, the government, they're learning new stuff about the virus, and they're making mandates, and the mandates trickled to the corporate world, and corporate's like, well, we got to follow these mandates, and the masks were on, and I had to do that with Pepsi merchandising, and I understood protocols, but it was tough for them. The world 2020 and even this year, the retail world has just been a mess. I mean, everyone's like, oh, they're heroes out there. They definitely are, for sure, because they not only now have to put up with customers, but have to put up with all the mandates and stuff, and they're doing a great job, for sure. So
Hero had a question, and this is actually a pretty good one. Do you feel intimidated animating your friends?
no, not at all. I before I got to the animation process, I was in close contact with them about like designing what they looked like, and I was kind of sending them back and forth like, oh, you think you like this shirt color? Do you like what's your weapon gonna be when we pulled all the weapons off the wall? All the hardware tools, and they got a good say in how they kind of wanted to look, and I knew I wanted to do that before I even started. But that project was really fun, and I have a lot more coming for sure.
Now, have they mentioned anything to you about like what it's been like working there with like the supply chain issues? Like what kind of customers are they getting, and are customers still acting surprised that they can't get stuff?
Yeah, I haven't heard too much about that. Just a few things. I know there's certain products, international stuff that's there's been issues bringing into the store, but not too much. I'm kind of surprised because I figured that would be such a big thing, but I wonder if it's just because it's hardware stuff or a lot of it's American made. But that was definitely surprising for me. Yeah, I haven't heard too much of that.
Wow. So let's see here. What else we got? Question wise, nothing there. Um, you know, I lived in Atlanta for a while, and Home Depot's corporate office is down there, and as you know, and I've got to say that the people I've run across that have worked for Home Depot usually have pretty good things to say about them. To be honest with you, they're one of the few companies that you really don't hear a lot of negative press about, and I think that's a good thing. I think that says a lot for what they're doing. And another question just came in: did you expect retail to influence your animation as much as it did?
No, not at all. It really took the first two bad customer experiences to just really give me that idea. And I'd come home from work, and be like, hey, guess what happened today? And it there was a difference between, kind of like telling what happened and then showing what happened. So I was like, well, I have to show, like, I got to make this an actual series. So um, I never thought, yeah, retail would have such a big impact on my life, but I'm happy it did, because it taught me a lot of things, responsibility, timeliness, and there was definitely more good than bad, but it was quite the journey for sure. And I can definitely relate to anyone going through it. It's fun. I think everyone should at least do retail or fast food for 1 year of their life, just to see the kind of stuff that happens, because it sounds exaggerated, but once you actually experience it, it's like, wow, that all of it's true.
You bring up a good point, and actually, the experiencing it part of it just came up as a question. It said, experiencing it firsthand and then getting out, do you find yourself reacting differently to one, employees, two, customers treating people poorly?
Yes, absolutely. It before I even went in retail, it was kind of just common sense, to kind of put yourself in the other person's shoes. Even not retail, you just kind of do that in life, because you really don't know what people are going through. And but retail definitely for sure has heightened that sense. And if the cashier's having a hard time and they're genuinely trying to do their best, especially in fast food, I can't imagine what fast food is like. Props to them. I mean, that's awesome. So definitely that's heightened that. And when I see customers, argue about a coupon, I'll there's been a few times I've kind of stepped in, like, hey, everything's going to be all right. But it's definitely, that's why I think everyone should experience that, because you get a better outlook and understanding of what the other person is trying to do. Because no employee is going to try and make you have a bad day. Like, no one's purposely saying, oh, we don't have it in the back. They're not doing it as some sick joke. They're actually trying to help.
Yeah. Um, so the video with the corporate visit. So I'm assuming you drew inspiration from real world things there as well.
Oh yes. Yeah. We had, speaking of spineless, I know that was kind of came up earlier, but we had a particular guy who would come in, and they were just the worst. I mean, they were super oblivious. We called them campus hires, because they would, get a master's degree and just go straight into management. And they thought they were the experts because they learned all about it from a book. And they never, there's a difference between learning about something and experiencing it. And they just did not know how to lead at all. And I got a lot more of those coming out too. Like, I'm happy people thought that was pretty funny, because I feel like I barely scratched the surface. We had multiple visits from that particular corporate person.
Well, I think historically that is one of the worst things I've ever seen happen, is what you just stated. These people get these degrees, and your video nails it. So this person gets a degree, goes straight to corporate or into management, has never worked in the store ever, and is sitting there telling you how to run a register, or the whole thing where you're in the garden center
Right.
and you're like, I'm not loading this up, I mean,
Yeah.
that's They don't teach them the real world when they go do that stuff. There's no chapter on dealing with Karens when you go to business management school. I mean, you can't.
Not at all.
I mean, it's just awful. And but yeah, that video was great because, any of us that have worked in retail, watching that, God, we have experienced that. It was like, I think actually I posted that video on Twitter, and I think that was the one I said that that you were my spirit animal.
Yes.
I was like, wow. But let's see. Irish Connection
Thank
asks,
you.
what would you change about retail culture? The manager's leadership or the entitled customers?
Ooh, that's a tough one for sure. I would say the oh boy, I would say the customer, because the manager leadership, they always sooner or later kind of figure out, however long that would take, kind of how the store operates, whether they do a good job or not. They eventually kind of figure out, what's what. The customer, though, has been the most consistent, just bad. I mean, and like I said, there's good customers, but when a bad customer comes in, there's nothing really changing their mind. They're out for blood. So I would definitely change the customer over the manager leadership. One's annoying and one is scary.
Right.
So
Well, I mean, working in retail is frightening in a sense because if you look at it from just a study on people, it's frightening
yeah.
because I've told the story. I started back in retail and grocery and stuff in like 1988, and I've told people that I've watched
Oh my goodness.
society devolve in real time because 15, 20 years ago, there weren't really Karens or customers like that. If there was something they had their shopping cart that they decided they didn't want to buy, they'd actually go put it back where they got it. Not anymore. And so when you're working on the front line, you kind of see the underbelly and ugliness of humanity, and it's frightening.
Dang. I always wondered that. Yeah, that's interesting because I always wondered, is this a new thing? Is like the Karen a new thing? But that's interesting. You mentioned that.
Well,
Yeah.
I think
Wow.
a large part of it, and you hit on this earlier, making the phrase, the customer's always right. I think at some point in time, corporations just decided that was the law, and they would bend over
Oh,
backwards for the most ridiculous requests. And it's that whole give them an inch, they take a mile, and it's just exploded and gotten worse. And I'm very thankful because I really thought Black Friday this year would be terrible, and thankfully, nobody did anything stupid that was notorious enough to make video or whatnot. But yeah, people have just gotten uglier, and I hate to say that, but just like your guy who exploded about the doorknob. I mean, really and truly, there was no reason to explode about the
oh, yeah.
doorknob, but this is just what we're
No.
dealing with now. And I live down here in the South, and let me tell you, there is nothing worse than an entitled Karen in the South. Let me just tell you.
Oh man. That's funny you mention that because I'm from Texas, so I completely see that. Moving from Texas to Minnesota, it's definitely a big culture shift. Um, the yes sir and the no sir, not as big up here. But I never did retail down south, so I cannot imagine what
Wow,
that's
I
like.
cannot imagine just a shock going from Texas to Minnesota.
It was a bit, yeah. It was a learning experience, but there were good things in Texas that I definitely miss. Good things in the South, the manners and like I said, yeah, the yes sir and the no sir. It still happens up here, but it's not as big. I mean, down there, it's everywhere, and I always thought that was
Were you a
awesome.
Cowboy fan?
Actually,
Oh
Broncos
no.
fan, but I always wanted to see the Cowboys win.
Nice. Well, I'll give you the Broncos. That's okay. They had Elway. Um, Irish Connection said, "What do you think about the perception that retail is for teenagers?"
Oh, I absolutely disagree with that, and I I disagree too about the whole where some two people are doing the exact same job and one get pays more and the other one gets paid less because they're younger or older. Um, I try to see both sides of that. I see the argument where it's like, oh, well, this person's more experienced and this one's not. Well, if they're doing the exact same job, it shouldn't be, a pay gap like that. But retail is for everyone. I think a lot of teenagers are pretty brave for doing that. I mean, it's a good learning experience for them because that's kind of like opening them up to the world too. But I would argue that's the case for anyone, because there can be, someone who's like a lifelong customer going into retail and they're like, wow, this is what I was like to all the teenagers, way back in the day. So I would say it's definitely for everyone.
We got a geographical question for you here, since we were talking about Texas and Minnesota. Question was, do they think that you're being condescending there when you say yes, ma'am, or no, ma'am?
Oh, yes. I've had more of the ma'ams, I think, which is weird because I've had a ton of people say, don't call me ma'am, I'm not old. I think I even included that in one of my homeworks. Yeah, it's they take it as offense, which is weird. And I was like, absolutely not. I mean that out of respect. It's just how I was raised, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. But it's definitely a lot different up here. They'll kind of view that as an old-fashioned thing, which it's definitely not. It's just a respect thing. Have a nice day, sir. Have a nice day, man. So that's definitely a lot different than the South.
What's beautiful is when you can use that. When you got a difficult customer, and like you got some lady just raising all kinds of hell or whatnot. You get through it or whatnot, and you're like, you have a blessed day. Oh my God, that just sends them over the deep end. And you're being nice, but you're why you're being nice. You're doing it to be an asshole, but that will just send them over the edge. I mean, and I've seen that happen so many times. And then again, people who are having bad days that come in and shop, like you said, I mean, just the yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. Sometimes that'll just teeter somebody right off the cliff. And it's like, come on, man, we're trying to be nice here.
Right. They want to get in your head. I'm very petty sometimes. So exactly, I agree. Sometimes I'll just kind of like push it a little further, like, oh, well, have a nice day. Like, your bad mood didn't affect me, but have a good one,
Yeah,
I completely agree.
I kind of got that vibe when you did the little calling Karen thing where you called her and hung up.
Yeah, I've done that multiple times. Yeah, and I've gotten in trouble for it too. But I'll stand my ground. If someone's gonna call me and scream in the phone, for something I'm not, I didn't do, even though I'm trying to help, that phone is going straight down. I will hang up, because no one should have to do that. There's no written rule where it's like you have to sit through that. If you want to talk to someone respectful, I will gladly work through any issues, and I will make sure you have the best customer experience. But I'm not putting up with that. That's a waste of time.
At Home Mart, what was the worst department to work in, and why was it the garden center?
And why was it the garden center? Okay, so the garden center was the worst during Memorial Day. I would hands down say that any time of the year, even worse than Black Friday and Christmas during the poinsettias, because Memorial Day at Home Mart was so busy. We would have lines going around, the building, and it was just packed. But I mean, you kind of work with what you have, and that's funny. Why I was at the garden center. It was definitely fun, but Memorial Day Garden Center, you do not want to be there. You better.
We've had two people in the chat say paint. So was the paint department horrible?
Paint department. So paint department. The worst thing about paint was probably learning the paint machine and obviously spilling stuff. But then customers would come in and they'll be like, oh, I want to match this. And they'd show you a picture on your phone. And it's like, well, there's no way I can match that. And then again, it'd be your fault. There'd be a lot of customers doing that. The paint machine would malfunction more than enough times during the day. But it was pretty easy going on a good day. Those are about the only things that were more annoying than anything.
So talking about like just geographically, I mean, how how does the garden center do there? I mean, given what your climate is.
Yeah, the garden center thrives. The summers here in Minnesota are, first off, the winters are terrible. When we first moved up here, it was -50 wind chill, and I was like, no, not about this. But the summers are definitely worth staying for, and that's when we do most business. And we sell tons of herbs, tons of all these tropical plants, and it. I'm surprised someone said about the garden center because I actually had a great time out there. I mean, there were definitely bad experiences, down the line, but yeah, they do pretty well. A ton of our business is actually from the garden center.
I
So,
just had to take a jab at the garden center because my wife loves the garden center. So
oh yeah, 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 no
I
problem.
figure if somebody actually likes plants and stuff like that, it's probably a great gig. And when it's slow out there, God, I imagine it's peaceful as hell.
It's so peaceful. Everyone's like, "Oh, the birds are so annoying." It's like, well, don't let them poop on you because they'll go right above you. They'll make their nest right above the cash register. But right when the store opens and it's kind of that sunset or sunrise, it is so peaceful. I mean, you're kind of just in your own thought, and yeah, I actually loved it out there. Not during Memorial Day. Any other day, any other day of the week, it was great. But great department.
Somebody asked, what advice would you give to a new employee starting at the Home Mart?
Have fun, definitely. It's going to be hard because learning the point of sale system, if you're starting as a cashier, that's going to take some time getting used to. But definitely have fun. I had a blast, and if a customer is going to be bad, you shrug it off, or it'll always make a great story in the future. But make friends with your coworkers and work as a team because the Home Depot, the Home Mart is my hands down my favorite place I've ever worked with. Coworkers. I mean, I've never had coworkers better than Home Depot. They are that good. So it was really fun.
Now, I will say, when I was talking about, people talking about working at Home Depot, now I have heard quite a lot of negative stuff about Lowe's, quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
It seems like, if you're going to, it's kind of like Target and Walmart. It's like Home Depot would be Target and Lowe's would be Walmart, because I have hardly heard anybody say anything good about working for Lowe's ever.
Yeah, and I can't speak for I will say this: when customers are like getting mad at us, they're like, "Oh yeah, well I'm going to go to Lowe's. You just lost a customer." That excites me because they're going to have a worse experience at Lowe's than Home Depot. We did the best we could do. So I've heard that same thing too, and eventually the customers will come back because Home Depot is where it's at. I mean, nothing beats that, walking into Home Depot and getting that nice Home Depot smell, the lumber department or the garden center. I mean, that's just classic. You can't beat it.
Um, let's see. Irish asked, what were your managers like when you had visits from corporate? Did they put on a show and pretend everything was great?
A few of them did. The other few were very respectful. They came up to us. They're like, yeah, corporate's coming in. We just want to make sure that we're opening credit cards and we're doing a good job with customer service, and just make sure that we're not messing anything up. So and I even saw a lot of my managers hop on a cash register and actually help out, but sometimes that would be putting on a show like, oh, this is what we always do. It's like, you've never been on a cash register in like 3 years. What are you doing? So yeah, they were okay. They were all right. We had a few managers that genuinely cared, that didn't just offer us pizza parties, and then the other few were, it was always putting on a show like, oh yeah, here's Schmitty. It's like, well, my name's Brady. They're like, oh yeah, we knew that.
So So Lowe's is like really would have really been your only competition. Did you guys have like Ace Hardwares up there anywhere?
We do. They weren't super big competitor wise. We have Menards. Do you
No,
guys
we do
have
not have
that down
Menards, but
south?
I've heard of that company.
It's growing pretty quick. They do one thing that pretty much creams us. It's their like 11% rebate match or something like that, where it's like everything you can fit in a bag, they'll match it or some super big deal. So I'd probably say Menards is a little bit more of a competitor than Lowe's, but at the end of the day, Home Depot, it's always on top.
How was like the shoplifting atmosphere there? Was it extremely difficult for people to get out of their stuff, or were you guys like everywhere else just getting robbed blind?
We um, we were getting robbed while we were watching the robbery take place, and we cannot do anything about it. There was one instance where we had we would call them what we call them like a code name. I cannot remember it for the life of me. But if we saw that particular person, they were a regular, we would call management. Hey, Mr. Kelly, I think, is in the store. Just keep an eye on him. And we could not do anything. One person walked out, and I think they had at least $2,500 in paint, drills, hammers, lumber and stuff, just random crap. And I ran to my manager one time, and I'm like, hey, manager, this person's robbing our store right now. What do we do? And I kid you not, she was like, well, we don't know what they're going through in life right now. I'm like,
Well,
are you kidding me? We're just gonna let this
you know
happen.
what
So
though? That
yeah,
not that that should be always the answer. Um, she brought up a good point, and I do believe,
yeah,
personally, especially if you go hand in hand with how customers have changed and how society has changed, it's extremely dangerous, really, at this point,
yeah.
to try to do anything. And I'm a big advocate for there ain't nothing in any of these buildings
Oh,
worth dying for. But the bigger thing would be,
yeah.
do they even like make an attempt to like get tag numbers and call the cops, or they just let it go completely? Because I mean, I could see that, like if they're at the door, they can ask for a receipt, and the thief can just tell them to screw off and walk out anyway. I mean, are they doing anything further than that, or are they just letting it go?
This is gonna sound really bad, but honestly, not from what I've seen. Maybe management does that from behind the scenes, but when we've witnessed it, I've never had to record it in a computer or anything. I've never had to be like, oh, I saw this was stolen. I've never had to account for any of that. So maybe they watch the cameras. But from my knowledge, I've never seen any follow up with that.
Wow,
So
because there's some high ticket
yeah,
item in those joints. So one of the last
yeah,
questions I
it's what,
wanted to ask you, and I saved this to the end. How much did you
yeah.
love having to push credit cards?
Oh boy, I figured this would come up. Um, yes, I hated it, every bit of it, and that's when I put on a show because I pretended like I liked doing that. So if any of my managers are watching this, I hated every bit of it. I the only reason I did it because there was one day. I actually got a video coming out about this credit, but my manager caught me one day sitting down, which in retail, that's a big no-no. And I was like, well, I don't want to lose this job. What do I kind of do to make things better? I started opening up credit cards, and I I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I did a pretty good job. And my manager's like, wow, you're doing great at this. Keep up. And it started turning into a
Mm-hmm.
expectation about me opening up these, and um, another coworker of mine was like, oh, it's pretty good. Like, what are you getting out of it? And I'm like, that's a good point. Nothing. So I kind of stopped, and they kind of got mad, and it was kind of they made all these things. I think there was like I don't know if they had these at the other Home Depots, but it was like they put a free soda sign if I don't ask for
Oh
credit,
yes.
and they have those at the other Home
No.
Depots.
Oh, other retailers. have stuff like that. Oh
Oh,
yes.
really? Yeah, I mean, that's super petty. So I would ask for credit cards, but I'd make it very clear it's a credit card. You know, I'd be like, "Oh yeah, would you like to open a credit card? Do you want to, lower your credit today?" I'm like, "Well, I asked them. You don't want it."
I,
So it's like I'm not going to let them
I
in. Yeah,
hated I hate the
but I hate
credit card thing. Look, I think it's okay that these places offer them, but I think to like strap arbitrary numbers on
yeah.
these cashiers. I mean, you get like some 17-year-old cashier who's never worked a day in their life before. It's their first job, and they've got enough stuff to learn on the register as it is, and now you're trying to get them to sell stuff. That just doesn't work.
Yeah, right. And the thing is, we had a designated credit person that would walk around the store and try and open credit who got paid way more than we did. And we were opening up more cards than they were. So it's like, we're getting nothing. And there were a few times the credit guy would come in and be like, hey, they'd give me the corporate speech like, we really appreciate you getting that. Here's some Home Depot napkins. I was thinking about you. No, they didn't do that. But it would be the same thing. They'd just think of some thoughtless. You're like, yeah, you matter a lot to us. I'm gonna go get my Lamborghini and drive away that you paid for. So thanks.
And sometimes
Like,
asking people
yeah,
to get a credit card is infuriating people. God, the amount of people I've had yell at my cashiers and stuff because they offered them a credit card. Clark Howard on the radio says never
oh,
get
yeah,
store credit card. I mean, people get like mad.
yeah. Oh, totally. It's just blown so out of proportion now, and it's just like I still want to know what the whole reason, like who benefits from it, because it's not the cashiers, it's not the credit guy. So
Do
like
you
at the end of the day, where's
do
all
you
that
want to know
going
the trick?
to?
You want to know who it matters to? Here's how this works. All right,
What's
so
up?
let's just use Home Depot as an example. All right, so let's say
Yeah.
their credit cards offered through like Synergy or HSBC, right? So let's say they apply for a credit card, and this customer, let's say they get a $3,000 limit. Okay, well once they spend that
Mm.
$3,000, that goes into the Home Mart's till, and then if they default on that credit card, Home Mart doesn't care. They already got their 3K. So
Mm.
see, because
Yeah.
if they do not pay off the credit card, that falls to the credit card company. The actual company that is issuing, like a Home Mart, they get the sale. So they don't care.
That yeah, that's crazy. That sounds like a scheme
Well, it
that I
is.
want no
I
part
was
of.
I was a manager for Guitar Center for several years, and I
Oh,
literally had
yeah.
somebody because we pitched credit cards, and I had somebody
Mm.
tell me that, look, if they get approved for $3,000, make them spend it today because once we get the sale, we don't care what happens to their credit. We don't care if they never pay it back. We got ours. I mean, it's very predatory. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's and I kind of stopped when I was offering because they were relentless. They're like, we need 100 credit cards today. I don't care how we did it, and they'd be making us ask these old people, these senior citizens, and I'm like, I can't do that. They got enough on their plate already. Like, why do I want them riddled with Home Depot credit? Like, I don't want to go to hell. Like, that's just a
Right.
scummy thing to do. So it, yeah, that's crazy. That's
Um,
something else.
I'm
Wow.
assuming this question is like talking about the videos and the animation that you do. The question is, did you watch any training videos and think that
Yeah.
I could do better than this?
Oh, all the time. All the time. All of the training videos we watched were all fake. And Home Depot had a mandatory training video every month called In Focus, which it kind of went over a different topic, like credit and what happens when the store's getting robbed and, cashier friendliness stuff. But the way they explained it was just bad. Yeah, I could
Oh,
definitely do better. It's funny because the one,
have
what's
you
up?
done any? Because I haven't watched all your videos yet. Have you done like a series of like training videos? I think that would be awesome if you did that.
I was kind of thinking about it. Someone brought that up in one of my comments. I think it was part two. where like the end credit scene was like, oh, this resembles our training video kind of style. And I'm like, yeah, I wasn't really thinking about that. But I'm like, that's kind of a good idea. There's sort of an untapped market there of all the training
That would be
videos, but
awesome.
the ones I have, yeah, I think, yeah, I'm tempted. I think there's, like I said, a lot of material there for sure. Especially if it's the campus hires
Yeah.
backpedaling it.
And and it doesn't have to be home mart specific. I mean, you can make up a training video for anything, but your delivery and what, man, I think that would be fantastic to see. Do that. Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you
All right.
so much.
So we're
Yeah.
sitting at right at an hour. So where do you want to take
Okay.
Brady Tunes? Like what's your goal?
My goal, I would love to continue this retail thing because originally I started the Home Artist, like I said, a sub series for my Storytime series, but retail really sticks on my channel for some reason. So I would love to grow YouTube. I think I've had a ton of fun making all these videos, and even if I don't get monetized, it was super fun to make because I met some amazing people, and I would love to just continue that. It was a great
There was a
experience.
suggestion for your training video: sarcastic service with Brady.
Sarcastic service of Brady. I love it.
Well, I will tell you, we will.
Thank
The
you.
Warzone community will continue to be spreading your good work because it is. We as retail workers, okay, we love seeing this stuff. We love seeing, that even though we know we're not alone, but we love seeing people who can take these experiences that we all have and put them in a package like you have that are not only truthful, but they're humorous, they're funny. And I've got to praise you. I mean, your content's great, and I'm telling you, the more that gets out in front of retail employees, you know, you'll be doing just fine. And we're going to do our damnedest to make sure we get everybody we can to see them.
That means the absolute world to me, and that's what makes it worth it. I mean, that Steve, thank you so much for having me. I mean, this was a great opportunity, and thank you to the Irish Connection for reaching out on Reddit and letting me post in a subreddit. I mean, this was a great experience. That means the world to me that people watch these and laugh at them because that's what makes it worth it. I love also hearing other stories too about what other people go through and how we can relate. So that's what I look forward to for sure.
Anytime,
Thank you so much.
anytime. And like I said, I think what you're doing is great. And I'll tell you, like we've discussed before, you get like this moderate kind of growth as you go through one. It only takes that one person to get a hold of one of your videos. I mean, and it's just a matter of just filtering that stuff out there and getting there. We had a gentleman on the show, Steven Petrivelli, who has a comic book series based on retail, and
Saw that.
and
That
it is
was so cool.
fantastic. And I like the fact that I can see these kind of experiences get put into these different kinds of media, to where, if you're a comic book lover, you love it. If you like animation, or you're wanting to learn how to do animation and they stumble across your stuff, I mean, we have lots of stories to tell from this industry, and the more avenues of storytelling that we can gather, the better off as a group we all will be. So I'm extremely thankful that Irish reached out to you, and I'm thankful that you came on. And like I've said before, anybody that's on the show, your links to your stuff stays in the description of our videos as going forward, whether it be the comic book or websites or whatnot. So it's always going to be there. And we'll hit you up again and have you back on again. We'll check back in like 2 or 3 months and see where you're at and do this again and chop it up. So these are great experiences for me. And I especially love when I see people taking like what you're doing. It's obviously it's well done. It's professionally done. It's not like, some 12-year-old scribbling on paper. You know what you're doing. You went to school for it, but you found a way to use your talent to tell these stories. And that's something that we all need. And I don't know if you've ever seen him. Have you ever seen Sergeant Ducky?
I
Okay,
have not. No.
he's from Ireland, and he has a whole
So,
series of
okay.
videos on retail, and they're pretty vile, but they're funny. But it's that kind of stuff. It's having the people that can tell these kind of stories just like you, what you're doing, that makes it all worthwhile. And like you said, whether you get monetized or not, it's about being able to do it. Same thing here. If I don't ever make a dime off this shit, I don't care. I mean, this is therapy for me, So, once again, thank you so much for
Yeah.
being on, and we'll hit you up soon. So, do you have any last words for anybody before we go?
Well, Steve, I'm honored again to be on the podcast, on the show. I love your work, and I think I've watched almost all your episodes now, and it's just amazing, the stuff that you do too. And it's so interesting telling the story from the perspective of the retail associate or the employee, because we see all these memes and these stories, but we don't actually know what it's like. So I think there's just such an audience wanting to listen to that too. So I think your work's amazing too, and I'm so honored that you had me on here. I'm looking forward to seeing what you release next, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. So thank
Oh,
you
well,
very
thank you.
much.
And just to let you know, the audio version of the podcast, it should be up sometime between 11 and midnight. So that's the one thing I do is that we do the live stream,
Perfect.
and then I'll go back and I'll throw it in the Logic, and chop it up to where I need to, and then we do like the audio side of it. So that way people can kind of pause it and pick out their parts and whatnot. But be watching for that tonight.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. So,
Thank you so much.
so tonight is the last one for 2021. When we return, we will have a brand new look. Um, Only two people have seen it, and that is the wife and Irish. So they know what's coming. It's going to be very gritty. So, I'm very proud of it. I figured, new year, we'll change some things up. If you have not spread the song, go spread the song. Blame Tag wants 10,000 plays before Christmas. We're about 2,000 away, so we're not far off. He said he would wear a dress too, and do like a Mariah video. So we'll see if he does that. But anyway, guys, everybody have a great night, and we will see you on January 5th. Thank y'all.